Yo, what's up guys? Got pokeaim here with my round 3 battle of the Best Friends tournament. I'm still in this with my friend Nat, and she's playing RU, I'm playing OU this round. Now, I'm using the team that I use in SPL, where I was trying really hard to lose, and it didn't end up working out that way. My opponent has a pretty threatening team, Volcarona. However, I do have 2 means of checking that. 3, I guess, if you count Assault Vest, Tapu Lele, but Toxapex and X-Girl Understand can check that. Lopunny could be a problem, but between T-Spikes and a physically defensive Rocky Helmet Tangrowth, I think I'm okay. His Landorus, if it's Z, is an issue. If it's Z, Fly. But when I see Volcarona and I don't see anything to really lure something like Pex on the build, I don't know. I don't think like Z, Fly is necessary on this build, especially with Volcarona taking advantage of Pokemon like Bulu. Magnezone, I don't know if it's... I'm not sure about the point of Magnezone on this build. Maybe it's just for Skarmory to allow an easier time for Lopunny, which makes sense. And I guess Celesteela as well, because Volcarona kind of deals with both. But then again, it doesn't switch in, especially with Rock stuff. And then Tyranitar is looking to be Assault Vest. Like, I knew that much at Team Preview because Alakazam, Mega Alakazam is a giant pain. So I think that if I keep my Toxapex alive, I should be good versus Volcarona. Tangrowth checks this. And my Sand Rush could be really nice if I weaken the Landorus, which I'm thinking is defensive because it's rocks. And defensive Lando plus Feeny is enough to help check Medicham on top of Lopunny. So as far as leads, I ended up going off with my Landorus because if he let off his Lopunny, I can get off Intimidate early. If he let off his own Landorus, I can just hard switch directly into my Tangrowth. He ends up leading off a Magnezone, and honestly, I see this as an opportunity to get a free kill. Magnezone does nothing versus my team. If it's Choice Scarf, if it's Specs, it's a little bit problematic. And considering he only has 1 switch in to ground type attacks, I thought that just throwing off an Earthquake turn 1 made sense. He opted to Flash Cannon me to weaken me for Lopunny, so that made a lot of sense too. Again, ended up being Scarf Zone, so it didn't really do much versus my team. Lopunny comes out, I got the Tangrowth as a pivot, and my Tangrowth does have Sleep Powder, so I should be good versus this Lopunny, provided I do actually connect. Which I go for it right here, and I miss my first Sleep Powder. This kind of sucks because he obviously Power Up Punch, which was a good play. Probably anticipating me to want to actually go out into Tangrowth. But this sucks because I don't get to sleep on Lopunny, which means I'm kind of forced to sack in a position where I wouldn't have to sack anything had I hit that Sleep Powder. So we're going to go Landorus here as he makes a really solid play and goes for the Power Up Punch again. However, with the Regenerator, my Tangrowth does live 1 hit anyway, so I can pivot back into Tangrowth as he goes for Ice Punch, and then pivot right back out to Lando. I didn't have a Scarf like Lele to Revenge Kill, so I think it made more sense to do this. Kind of sucks that I was forced to sack my Lando due to that Sleep Powder miss, because obviously Earthquake and Continental Crush did a lot versus his team, even if it was like at the 30-40% it was. But still means I don't get swept by the Lopunny. We're going to bring out Tangrowth here. I'm going to go right for the Giga Drain at that point, because with Rocky Helmet plus Giga Drain, I'll be able to deal with Lopunny anyway. I don't want to risk missing. He goes Feeny, anticipating me to want to go for the Sleep Powder to obviously get up the Misty Terrain and avoid that. I take this opportunity to go for Knockoff because I feel like my X-Girl can do a lot of work with Feeny not having Leftovers Recovery, coupled with Sand wearing it down, especially his own Sand too. So take an opportunity to go for Knockoff, as he does go for Nature's Madness. And I'm going to make the, I believe I'm going to make the Toxapex pivot as he goes out to Volcarona. Now, this isn't too worrisome for me because the only Volcarona that could knock me out would be a +1 Shattered Psyche. And if that was the case, I would actually switch if it's set up right in my face. But him switching out immediately leads me to believe he's not Shattered Psyche. Buggy or Inferno Overdrive are the 2 that make the most sense to me. And I have to get up a T-Spike because eventually Misty Terrain is going to end, and I'll be able to poison the Feeny. This also helps me check Volcarona later. Now, he goes for Stealth Arc here, Orlando. I ended up pivoting out into my Tangrowth because I do, of course, have the Sleep Powder, and I have the Giga Drain to do a little bit of damage to him. Had he been Z Fly, at least that means he's a little bit more offensive, so I could check him with my my Drill to an extent. Even Pex will live possibly 1 hit. 1 sec though, I'm just going to be right back. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, had it been Z Fly, then that means Volcarona is a lot less of a threat without a Z move because it cannot KO Tyranitar. And I'm pretty sure that this is, again, defensive Landorus just looking at his build. So I go for, I get in my Tangrowth. He does throw off an HP Ice, which is not a 2-hit KO after Giga Drain recovery. And I actually opt to go for the Sleep Powder here, anticipating him to just stay in, because if I get off a Sleep Powder, especially because it's a slow Sleep Powder, and I actually manage to connect, then my Excadrill is such a giant threat. But I get in Lele now on the double because I'm bulky Assault Vest Lele. First off, I deal with Volcarona, right? If he went out to Volcarona, I could side shock him and then knock it out because I'm modest and whatnot. Especially with poison, it's a guarantee. It deals with Feeny coming in too because he switches out first, which means I get my terrain up versus Feeny. And that means that Psy Shock pretty much picks up a KO. And it dealt with Lopunny on a double too, though I did not anticipate Lopunny because I could have just Giga Drained. But either way, Lopunny comes out, which kind of forces a KO at this point. I opt to keep my Tangrowth healthy just because it's still a check to the Tyranitar, to Feeny, to Landorus. Now I go for Moonblast here because I'm kind of playing like games. Like maybe he doesn't know if I'm Specs or not, though he should know I'm some sort of bulk on it. But sometimes Spec sets also run a little bit of bulk. But I threw up a Moonblast because I was like, okay, if you want to go Volcarona and try to set up, I'm going to blow you back with this Psy Shock. But he's going to bring out his Tyranitar. I actually want to weaken this thing because Excadrill does knock it out with Iron Head after Moonblast, even if it is Assault Vest with Poison. So, yep, it was Assault Vest like I anticipated because Alakazam is just a huge problem versus this team. This means I can now safely go out to Drill and click Iron Head here. As he's now going to go out into his Landorus. Now, Landorus has not burnt any turns of sleep. Unfortunately, though, because I am Leftovers Drill and not Z, I don't feel comfortable going for Swords Dance here. If I was Corkscrew Crash, I would have Swords Dance here and just won, but I throw off an Iron Head because a little bit of chip on this thing means that Excadrill or Tyranitar can win later, as he ends up going out into his Feeny, which is still smart because he ends up getting out Terrain, which is great for Volcarona. But double Iron Head is going to do the job. In hindsight, what I think I should have done on Tyranitar was just go, or excuse me, on Landorus, was go directly out into Tyranitar because it really would have helped me out in this endgame that you guys are about to see ends up happening. Because basically, had I went Tyranitar on immediately on the Landorus, he would have went out into Feeny, and unless he was max speed with Taunt, I Dragon Dance up. I was Ice Punch, and I had Stone Edge too. So Ice Punch knocked out Landorus at neutral, and I Stone Edged the Volcarona, and that was game. But now he makes a really nice double out into. He makes a really nice double immediately into Volcarona. And again, that was a good play because one, it gets it in on Misty Terrain, and two, it gets it in on Tyranitar. I opted to go T-Tar because I can literally Dragon Dance up on a non-offensive Landorus and take a hit. Mega T-Tar is so bulky. But this does work out for me in a sense because it means that my opponent is basically forced to use its Z move. So I can bring out my... why did I bring out Toxapex? Why did I not go Excadrill? What the hell? Is this a misclick? I swear I went Excadrill here. Well, I should have brought out Excadrill. But then again, at the same time, Toxapex wins me the game safely too. Or so I thought, because it turns out he's a Roost Volcarona. So the next million turns are me literally pee-pee stalling a Volcarona. I should have went Drill and clicked Earthquake. But then again, at the same time, I don't know. I don't think Drill's quite KO'd. And it turns out he has Roost, as you guys can see. So I got up a second layer, which is really important because inevitably or eventually my opponent would have to switch out, right? He's not going to be able to stay in and beat me 1v1. He's going to try, but between Hazes, T-Spikes, and Scald, I have way too much PP. As long as I'm really smart with how I'm using my Hazes and using my recovers, not wasting them. At the end of the day, my opponent is eventually going to come down to like 3 or 2 Flamethrowers. Just skipping all these turns. A couple of Roosts there. Yeah, right there, you ended up switching out to Landorus, and that's basically GG at that point because I always go Tangrowth. If he doubles back out into Volcarona, it doesn't matter because Volcarona then becomes badly poisoned. I go for the Giga Drain. He doesn't wake up here, so like no crit will knock me out with HP Ice, and Volcarona's going to come out, but now Volcarona is badly poisoned. So at this point, it's over. We exchange GGs because I can't lose this game at this point at all. Yeah, he goes for a crit there. Even if he got that, didn't matter. I got to Excadrill and knocked him out with Iron Head. And at this point, I'm going to be able to win the game by just spamming Haze or spamming Scald because he is on that timer. So that's the game. Came down to this, but I don't think it needed to. As I said, I think my biggest misplay, or not even like necessarily misplay, but instead of staying in on Lando, I think I should have went Tyranitar and tried to Dragon Dance up, or even just brought in Tyranitar raw on Lando, right? And just try to Dragon Dance up, because Landorus' Earthquake, guys, a Mega Tyranitar is super bulky. So I think that's just something that I could have done differently and made it that I didn't have to pay attention to my Hazes and my Toxic Spikes and my Scald, because I did have to pay attention, because he technically could beat me if I choked, right? If I put myself in a range where he can crit me and beat me, but end up winning in round 3. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've uploaded round 2. I won round 2. We had to win round 2 to get to round 3. I played NU versus Lags, but yeah, I ended up winning that. Now it's up to Nat to win her round 3 game, and then we go on to round 4. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Toxapex is amazing. I hate this Pokemon. I don't, but I feel like it invalidates so much, and it was definitely the MVP in this game. I'll see you guys though. Bye, my friends.